You know, Becky, the thing that has surprised me is that a regulator hasn't picked up on this and actually sat down and gone, how on earth can we build a fully regulatory compliant monitoring system for our licensees that connects to the blockchain? And of course, I think the answer to that is that until very recent times, the solution that has the ability to do that, and I'll go back to it, is Bitcoin SV, didn't exist.
Hey everybody, this is Becky Legiro. Welcome to Hashing It Out. Today I am here with Stefan Matthews. He is the Executive Chairman and CEO of TAAL. He's the Executive Chairman of nChain and on the Executive Committee for the Bitcoin Association. So Stefan, you are a busy man. Thank you so much for being here with me today. It's lovely to see you.
Tell me about it, Becky. Busy is an understatement of major proportions, and it's so good to be with you because it's been, I've known you for a long time, but it's been years since we've had the chance to talk.
I know it. I was going to say, you're like the international man of mystery here. We haven't had you on an interview in a long time, so I'm really, really delighted that you're here. And especially delighted, Stefan, because you have a super rich background in the gambling industry, which is why we know each other so well. And I guess I wanted you to, first of all, start off by telling our audience briefly what your background is in the gambling world.
Well, back in roughly, it was actually early 2000, I believe, I had a business partner and we had some software which was developed by a US corporation. And in fact, the scientist who created it was an ex-NASA scientist. And that software was a suite of compression algorithms. And what it was designed to do was to be able to create high quality video streaming. Now, this is back in the days when this sort of technology was only being pioneered. And my business partner and I sat down. We had the license for Asia Pacific for this technology. And we thought, what are some of the interesting applications? And one of the things that we came up with, and I can't remember whether it was myself or Greg, but between us, we came up with the idea of being able to stream live gambling applications from casino tables. And I made a phone call to Jupiter's, the casino group in Australia, and I managed to get connected with Rob Hines, their CEO, group CEO. I travelled up to the Gold Coast and did a pitch to Rob about using these compression algorithms to be able to stream live gaming applications. So essentially live casino applications that we know today. And he said to me, this is really interesting technology and the concept is really good, but it will never work. There's no market for this. But I really like you and I'd like to talk to you about something else. We've just acquired a few months before a sports betting company called Centrebet. I can't remember the year that Centrebet was formed, but I'm going to guess around 1995, 1996. And Centrebet, interestingly, was the first company in the world to receive an online gambling license, and that was from the Northern Territory Gaming Commission. It was the second company in the world to ever process an online bet. The first was Intertops, but the two companies didn't know each other. And Jupiter's had acquired Centrebet from Terry Lillis, the Northern Territory bookmaker who founded it. But everything wasn't a waste of time because they actually offered me a job. So I ended up joining Centrebet, and we ended up doing a deal with the Cafetaris family, who had a racing online racing book called Sportsbet. That merger took place, and Sportsbet was absorbed into Centrebet, and Centrebet became the brand. And then the plan was to IPO Centrebet on the Australian Stock Exchange. And in preparation for the IPO, I had engaged BDO in Australia to undertake a security systems and control systems audit of the online operation. And when the partner from BDO came in to introduce his audit team, and he sat in our boardroom with me. He had three other individuals with him. One of them was Craig Stephen Wright. And Craig was based in Sydney. The partner from BDO was from Melbourne. So Craig was appointed by BDO as the audit lead. So he spent a lot of time over about 4 or 5 months in our office, working not so much directly with me, but with 3 or 4 key members of my team. We obviously completed the audit, and in 2006 we completed our IPO. And it was from then on, Craig was the person that was most responsible for the relationship between Centrebet and BDO, because he was based in Sydney and he had the audit lead experience from that engagement. So, he used to speak a lot to my team, but he started coming in and talking to me personally about things, and I didn't understand in the beginning, and we're probably talking about 2007 here. I didn't understand in the beginning what the nexus was between Craig's rambling of ideas and things that he was working on, but it started to crystallize in 2008. And it was at that stage he was planning his exit from BDO. And of course, it turned out that before the end of 2008, he left BDO and he was working on his own. And he then started to engage with Centrebet in a different way. So at that point, we had a security committee to the board, and we wanted an independent advisor. So we engaged with Craig to be our independent advisor. But I'm going to wind back into 2008, because the man used to sit down and talk to me about all things about digital currencies, e-currencies, digital gold, and a lot of technology related to that. And I mean, I don't talk about this publicly too much, but it was during that period he started to show me some of the material that he was working on that ended up in the Bitcoin white paper. Mm-hmm. So, I have a personal background and history. I don't need to listen to what people say online or, people's opinions about certain things, whether he was, whether he wasn't, and so on and so forth. I know because he spoke to me about these things. But let's move on from that, because, things did evolve. I at the end of 2009, early 2010, when Centrebet was acquired by Sportingbet, I left, and I had agreed to join the Bodog Group in London. And of course, when I walked through the door on my first day, one of the people that was sitting right there, right in front of me, was Becky Legiro.
I remember.
Yeah. So, that was kind of a surreal moment, because, I'd kind of followed the history and the profile and the marketing position that, Calvin had with the Bodog Group, and to walk into the office and see you, it was kind of like crazy. But and then, of course, from there, I moved to the Philippines and eventually left the gambling sector altogether after probably 16 years of that industry. I was looking for something different to do, and it was through that period that Craig happened to follow up with one of the guys that used to work for me at Centrebet and asked where I was, and he called me on my mobile phone. He said, of all the people in the world that I know, you're the one that I would value the opinion from the most. He said, look, I'm sick of running businesses. Man had 16 companies. Don't ask me why. But he said, I don't want to run companies. I don't want to be responsible for human resource. I don't want to be responsible for legal. I don't want to be responsible for accounting. I don't want to be responsible for all the things involved in running a company. All I want to do is sit in a room, create my own ideas, pass them off to other people who can take those ideas and build them into solutions.
Yeah.
And I said, if that's what you really want out of life, I will consider that and I'll go away and come back to you. It was out of that conversation that ultimately the nChain group was created.
Yeah.
And we ended up acquiring, setting up companies in other parts of the world to own IP in a major R&D centre in London. And Craig and his family moved to London, and he got his wish, which is, and you've been there, you've seen what he wished for, his premises, and he sits down there and he creates 1,000 ideas a day, and he trunks them through to the main office in London, and there's a very large team now of 250 odd people in the nChain group that take those ideas and do things with them.
Yeah, it's a pretty outstanding story there. I feel like it's the stars aligned so many different times to get us where we are today. So this is all really cool. Thank you for sharing that. And also what I wanted to know, Stefan, is since you are so involved with nChain and now it's all, is to explain to our audience how these two companies, how they tie back to the gambling industry. So we'll start with nChain, which I know I've even seen nChain at a gambling industry conference before at Sigma a couple years back. They had their own booth. So now why would a company like nChain take time to show their stuff at a gambling conference?
Well, I mean, the blockchain, it really got, well, actually there's two parts to it. I'm more personally focused around the blockchain rather than the digital currency side. But of course, when I called Calvin to bounce a few ideas off of him back in early 2015, I said to him, do you know anything about Bitcoin? And he said, I've heard of it. And of course, what he'd heard of was the digital currency side of it. And his interest was, what that meant to the online gaming sector. But where my head was at that time was more around blockchain and what blockchain applications meant to a variety of industries and sectors. But we're seeing today a whole lot of movement of online gambling or gaming applications moving onto the blockchain. The sad thing, Becky, is that over the years, it's been impractical for a lot of these applications to actually sit on, Ethereum or BTC or whatever you might want to consider, because there have been and still are significant scaling issues. And of course, I'm lucky enough now to be working with a platform, Bitcoin SV or BSV, which doesn't have those scaling issues. So, I see gaming or gambling operators starting to port, move, build applications on BSV. One, because it has got the capacity to be able to scale enormously. And secondly, because the transactional cost of running those applications is extremely low. And when I say extremely low, I'm talking in the area of, 1/100th of a cent per transaction. That's staggering compared to every other blockchain solution that exists in the market today. There is an enormous differentiation between BSV and the others. And this comes back to the whole concept of utility as well. I mean, I have no problems, and I've done it myself, where you invest speculatively in digital assets. But, I do it knowing that it's no different than going to a casino, which I know so well. So, gambler beware, don't bet more than you're prepared to lose, because be careful, it might happen. But I see BSV quite different. The value in BSV is not driven by speculation in the majority. It's growing slowly and it's growing consistently through use and utility, which is what I would prefer to see. The other side of what I learned in the online gaming sector, especially when in late 2015, when I started to get involved in mining. I looked at how mining operations are set up, and the thing that struck me is that this was no different to running an online casino. Yeah. And especially, the number of times I've sat down with new staff. How many times have you watched TV programs that have got casino floors, and what is it that's sitting there overseeing or watching the casino floors? And they went, "What is it?" And I said, "There's a control room. There's people sitting there. It doesn't matter whether it's an online site or whether it's a land-based site. There are people sitting there watching tables, watching pit bosses, watching players, watching table performance to see whether there's milking or card counting or leakage or whatever it is." If you're running a mining operation, the mechanics are exactly the same as if you're running, 5,000 online slot machines, because you've got your slot machines and your mining machines, your hashing machines are programmed to give you a certain return. You've got your theoretical return and you've got your actual return. And if over time, things will always approximate to the programmed returns. If they don't, you've got to do further investigation, because there's milking going on, there's scamming going on, there's broken machines that aren't being repaired, there's people stealing your hash, there's all sorts of things going on. So the parallels that exist between mining operations, and that's exactly what we're involved in at a large scale here with TAAL, is no different to an online or land-based casino or gambling operation.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, it's such a cool analogy. And so nChain's working on solutions that the online gambling industry or the gambling industry can perhaps just plug into. Although TAAL is more of a mining operation, or even you could say data management and storage and all sorts of amazing things that people don't even realize.
Well, there's mining historically has just been hashing and taking your block rewards. In the future, in the future, by necessity, mining operations, if they want long-term viability, need to be thinking of ancillary services that they can provide. Mm-hmm. The obvious one is transaction processing, and that's why BSV is in the frame, because transaction processing at significant scale at low cost gives you, significant income. So you've got to have infrastructure that can handle the volume and throughput, which has been, the challenge for us over the last 2 years. And we've mined some very large blocks, both in terms of transactions and size of the blocks with different types of files. We've done that really well. But now we're starting to think about where all this goes. What sort of applications are coming on to the blockchain? What business sectors are going to be most likely to be able to create competitive advantage? Because that's the area we need to start thinking about, where we apply our own R&D and our own infrastructure. And we know that, in years to come, we're going to need specialist appliances on the network to be able to deal with different types of transactions. And that's an area that we're pioneering, and it's an area that, we'd like to be the thought leaders in over the next 3 or 5 years. We think about things like, I think about things like the convergence of blockchain technology, mining, and artificial intelligence. I think mining operators will want multiple revenue streams. They want transaction revenues. They want data management and data storage revenues. They want block reward revenues. They'll be using AI technology. There's no doubt in my mind some of the things that we're thinking about around machine learning and AI will definitely converge into design and product areas that we're working on over the next few years. It's never ending. I mean, the thought processes go on and on and on. And I sit down every 2 weeks and have a 1 hour brainstorming session with Craig, and he just does nothing other than load my head up with things that I think, Christ, Craig, if that happens in the next 20 years, I'll be surprised. But I've seen things happen in the last 5 years that I would have been surprised about as well.
Yeah. Oh, I
So
love it.
let me go back to Craig, because I want to talk about Craig. Well, somewhere in the first 2 or 3 months of 2009, he strolled into my office one day and said, "You can call me Dr. Craig now." I went, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I'm a PhD now. You can call me Dr. Craig."
So Craig to say that, by the way.
I know him from when he was just good old plain Craig to when he became Dr. Craig. And of course, I've never met anyone in my life that has an insatiable desire for education. And I can't work out whether it's an insatiable desire for education itself, or whether it's an insatiable desire to be seen to have all the credentials that flow from that. I think it's a combination of both. But knowing him as I do, his brain never stops. So, I'm not surprised. The sort of characteristics he has is pretty unique, and that's how he works in himself. I want to go back to competitive advantage now. Becky, back in Sydney when I was working for Centrebet, I was pretty active with the professional body of CIOs. And I went to a conference in Sydney, and I had the privilege of listening to a guy as a keynote speaker, and he was Clayton Christensen. I was so impressed, I actually went and bought a couple of his books. But of course, when I started working with Bodog, you and I were talking one day, and I actually mentioned to you about innovative technologies and competitive advantage and all those sorts of things. And you said to me, "You should talk to my dad." Yes. I said, "Who the hell is your dad?" And you said to me, "It's Sam Lazaro." And of course, you might recall we had a business event in Spain where we got all of our key people together, and I actually asked your dad to come and be a guest speaker at that event around innovation and disruption. And of course, it was the discussions that I've had with him over dinner, and it's the interest that I had after listening to Christensen talk in Sydney. It ties in so bloody well with this whole area of digital assets, blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, and everything else. So, my career has been blessed and privileged by the people that I've worked with, the people that I've met, and the sequential progression from one thing to another. And it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gone to a meeting back in early 2000 with Rob Hines on the Gold Coast.
Amazing. Oh, how I love this. And you know what, Stefan? My father looks forward to coming to a CoinGeek conference, the next one that is in the United States. I will be bringing him with me because he loves innovative technology. And Stefan, there's one question that I wanted to ask you for the gambling industry before we sign off today. As you know, I'm speaking with lots of gambling professionals about why blockchain is such a great technology for what they're working on, and that everything should be put on chain. And one professional said, even if the transaction fees are 1/100th of a penny each, if you're putting every single slot spin, every single detail on chain, multiplied times the world, this is still going to be very, very, very expensive with transaction fees. So I wanted to hear from you, as someone who is working with a large mining company, what the reality of that is. What do you think when someone responds like that?
It comes back to understanding and solution design, and not every single transaction has to necessarily go direct to the chain. This is part of the conversations I've been having recently with Dr. Wright, is around the use of overlay networks and how you design solutions so that you capture the benefits of timestamping of transactions on the chain and you can do that without necessarily having all the data physically on the main chain. And the way to design that, of course, is through overlay networks that connect to the chain, and you've got all your time and date stamps and everything else, which are completely immutable. They can be used for audit purposes and so on and so forth. You know, Becky, the thing that has surprised me is that a regulator hasn't picked up on this and actually sat down and gone, how on earth can we build a fully regulatory compliant monitoring system for our licensees that connects to the blockchain? And of course, I think the answer to that is that until very recent times, the solution that has the ability to do that, and I'll go back to it, is Bitcoin SV, didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, but you know, the sad thing is as well, it did exist in 2009.
I know.
In January 2009, it did exist.
Yeah.
But of course, we all know the history of it. It went off track, but you know, it's back, and it's only a matter of time before, you know, the broader understanding, both within the gambling operator ranks and also within the regulator ranks, start to understand this. And I know that my friends at nChain have had a number of discussions at various levels around this. But you know, if anyone in the industry that you address should sit down and have some workshops on this, it's the regulators.
Yep. I totally agree with you, Stefan. And this is another reason why you know, I'm doing interviews like this. The series Hashing It Out is to educate regulators and those in the industry of what blockchain really is and what Bitcoin really is. And I also want to encourage everyone watching this to please attend a CoinGeek conference where you can speak with people like Stefan and Calvin and Craig and people from nChain and TAAL. It's just a wealth of information and a really exciting technology that we can all take advantage of. Oh, I love it. And I love how you are so tied with the gambling world, Stefan. Another signal that this is.
Thank you, Becky.
This
as you know, I'm based here in Switzerland at the moment.
Yes.
So for anyone in your audience that's in and around Switzerland or Zurich, I will be roaming the floors of CoinGeek in June.
Amazing. Hopefully me too.
Okay.
If the border control lets us in. Thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed this conversation. Can't wait to see you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you guys so much for watching Hashing It Out. This is Becky Legiro with Stefan Matthews. Thanks for watching CoinGeek.com.
Data is one of the world's most valuable commodities. Tech giants and institutions have become richer by collecting and selling data. Data has the power to liberate, but has been used to manipulate. Data should be used to improve interoperability while securing privacy. Data sovereignty is most powerful when ownership is restored to individuals. But how can we speed up the flow of information while also empowering everyone to be more private, secure, and free? Join us at CoinGeek Zurich and learn how the Bitcoin SV blockchain ignites the power of data.